Baumgardner, the referee. They're gonna stop this. They're gonna stop it.
Welcome to the mother relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. A tweet that, at least for me, services as confirmation that the next time we see Alicia Baumgardner, she may not be a defending champion, she may be moving up in weight with the goal being to become a two-division champion. She took to her social media and in so many words she stated, two-time world champion. We know she's already been an undisputed champion at 130. I can only deduce that she means to move up to 135 in Katie Taylor's stead, so to speak. Katie Taylor recently became the undisputed champion up there at 140, avenging her loss to Chantel Cameron, which may result in a third fight, a trilogy. And while she does that, she may end up vacating the title she used to hold at 135, where she reigned as an undisputed champion. It's my understanding that the WBO recently gave her a deadline to decide what version of their title she's going to hang on to, the 135-pound version, the lightweight version, or the super lightweight version. If it goes vacant, that's a title that young Alicia can fight for.
Some speculation as to who Katie Taylor's going to fight next. Is she going to fight Chantel in the trilogy, or is she going to run it back with Amanda? And it's looking like she might end up fighting Chantel in the trilogy.
It doesn't look like she's going to be fighting Amanda Serrano in a second fight. Amanda Serrano, who very recently laid out her plans for this year. 1 or 2 boxing matches, then a return to the octagon towards year's end. And I don't get the sense that one of those fights will be a Katie Taylor fight. Thus, if Katie's not fighting Amanda again, we can only deduce that she'll be fighting Chantel again, presumably at 140 pounds. And if she's up there at 140, she's not at 135, leaving the door open for young Alicia to move up and fight for one or some of Katie's old titles, Katie's old belts. Alicia would be one of 2 fighters Matchroom is invested in at lightweight, not including Katie Taylor. There's Alicia Baumgardner, and there is also unbeaten up-and-comer Rhiannon Dixon. Unbeaten up-and-comer with a sunny disposition, a crafty southpaw trained by Anthony Crolla, who we've talked about several times here on the channel this year. Both Rhiannon Dixon and Alicia Baumgardner could see themselves become champions at 135 pounds.
Well, is Alicia even cleared to fight?
She might be. If she is now hinting at a move upstairs from 130 to 135, she might be cleared to fight. And if she is, I'm sure that some people are going to try to take jabs at her over that entire anti-doping fiasco, that anti-doping situation. In truth, I'm not too bothered about it.
She's fought too attractive for me to care about that stuff.
I don't care. Not even a little bit. I don't care at all about any of it. For the longest time now, the sport of boxing has had a blasé attitude when it comes to doping and anti-doping in the sport. Anyone from Canelo Alvarez to Tyson Fury have tested positive for banned substances, going all the way back to the days of Roy Jones Jr., when both he and his opponent tested positive for a banned substance.
People pick and choose who they want to vilify, who they want to attack for this stuff. People are too sometime-did, and I'm not going to pretend to care.
I'm not hung up on it. I'm not going to pretend to be hung up on it. Virtue signaling.
Yeah, I don't actually care. I still want to see her fight. I'm still going to watch her fight.
Simple as. I think she's handled the situation with grace and class and has taken the whole thing in stride, not shying away from the cameras, not shying away from the action, the whole back and forth thing she's had going on with Clarissa Shields, what is their domestic rivalry.
Turned into a real Edward versus Jacob kind of situation.
This whole thing between Alicia and Clarissa, lines being drawn in the sand, and the fans taking sides.
I'm on Alicia's side. I can't stand Clarissa Shields.
Alicia may not have been an undisputed champion at as many weights, as many times as Clarissa, but she's a lot better with people. She's a lot more graceful and a lot more fan-friendly. She has the charisma that Clarissa doesn't have.
For me and my money, her fights are more entertaining than Clarissa's. Her fights are more fun to watch.
She's a lot more attractive than Clarissa. I'm not going to pretend that she isn't. I'm not going to pretend that Clarissa and Alicia are in the same league. Alicia is out of her league. A rare beauty.
Yeah, I said it. Alicia's better looking, and Clarissa is annoying.
That's not a hard decision to make. I want to see Alicia Baumgardner in action. I want to see her fight 2 to 3 times this year. 4 if possible. The more she's out there, the better. She's made for TV, campaigning at what are more densely populated and deeper divisions that provide her with that many more opponent options. These aren't barren weight classes like what you find at 160 and 168. There are barely any girls to fight up there, whereas Alicia, she's in much deeper divisions.
I can't wait to see her come back, presumably at 135 pounds. Let's see if this is the year that Alicia becomes a 2-division champion.
If I was Tank and if I would advise him, I wouldn't fight Devin Haney without no rehydration clause because Devin Haney's jumping up to 165 the night of the bout. That's crazy. Like that was a big topic.
90
you don't normally see fighters jump up that big. So I think that and Tank right now Tank ain't even probably like in camp mode right now. Tank probably walking around 146 the most. He's a small guy, so that would be a huge disadvantage. If the world can't fault Tank for wanting to fight these guys at a catchweight, that's my friend. But also the reality of it, this is a guy that's really coming up from 130. You know what I'm saying? Coming up from 130 and fighting guys like Devin, guys like Brian Dar, they're bigger than him. So I don't think that he should jump into a fight with Devin without some type of clause or something, because Floyd Mayweather can make a 23-year-old kid like Canelo fight at a catchweight. Why can't it be on an even playing field when it comes to Devin and Tank?
But it's not a level playing field. It's not level for Devin Haney to have to adhere to weight stipulations to accommodate Gervonta. Nobody's asking Gervonta Davis to do anything that he hasn't forced other fighters to do. When he brought up Jesus Cuellar from 126 up to 130, when he brought up Hector Luis Garcia from 130 up to 135, he'd be making the same move up to 140 where he's already fought before. You're okay to fight at 140 against Mario Barrios.
What they're belly aching about is what Devin Haney rehydrates to, that the night of the Prograis fight, he rehydrated up to 165 pounds.
Twitter account that goes by the name According to Boxing asked, well, can Tank beat Devin Haney without a rehydration clause? Yes or no? To which another account that goes by the name Big Flame responded, can Haney beat anybody without rehydrating 25 pounds?
Lomachenko just fought Devin, didn't he?
There were no weight stipulations in that fight. There were no weight stipulations used in order to make that fight. So why do we need weight stipulations in order to make this one? And that Big Flame guy, that guy, he's a big David Benavidez fan who looks at Devin Haney as being a weight bully when...
What do you think David Benavidez is?
Since Big Flame is so comfortable with Gervonta Davis using weight stipulations on Devin, would he keep that same energy if Canelo stuck weight stipulations on David Benavidez? I don't even think you can accuse Devin Haney of being a quote-unquote weight bully when he's actually moving up in weight. David isn't. David didn't.
Devin isn't hiding out at a lower weight to maintain a size advantage over his opponents. His last fight was at 140 and his next one might be at 147.
And this idea that we're all of a sudden going to criticize Devin Haney for what he rehydrates to when this is a common practice, this is the industry standard. You think that Devin's the only one that rehydrates?
You think that he's the only one that comes in big the night of a fight? What do you think Errol Spence Jr.'s been doing? Jarrett Hurd, Sebastian Fundora.
What do you think Daniel Jacobs tried to do in the Golovkin fight and the Canelo fight? What do you think Callum Smith was doing at Super Middle and Zerto Ramirez? What do you think David Benavidez is doing there now? What do you think is going on?
You're probably thinking to yourself, well, I'm not a fan of those fighters anyway.
You're probably not, but you are a fan of Gervonta Davis, and that's why you got it in your head that he should get to play by a different set of rules than everybody else. That he can bring up Cuellar from 126 up to 130 and Hector Garcia from 130 up to 135, but when somebody asks him to do it, oh, well, he shouldn't have to.
He's not the face of boxing. boxing. I know what you're doing, and I know what you're thinking, and he's not the face of boxing. You ain't got the juice.
He's not Canelo Alvarez, and just because Floyd used to promote him, that doesn't make him this era's Floyd Mayweather. He's not Floyd Mayweather either. The truth is, Gervonta Davis's fans are shaking in their boots, scared that Devin's gonna beat him.
How many times did you hear me say, stylistically, Devin is all wrong for him? But it's not just Devin, it's Shakur Stevenson as well. So I have a suggestion, I have a proposition. If you don't want to have to move up to fight Big Devin, then fight Shakur right there at 135. No weight stipulations necessary.
I'll bet you he doesn't, because he's a fucking hype job, and underneath it all, his fans know it. They just like the idea of him, the illusion of Gervonta Davis being one of the best in the sport, so desperate for an icon, what is a false idol. They're willing to propagate this illusion.
Help him cosplay a champion. Help him cosplay a pound-for-pound fighter. He's none of those things.
All these obtuse arguments that people are having over what Devin Haney rehydrates to what is an industry standard. Could you imagine if Terrence Crawford tried to stick weight stipulations on Errol Spence Jr.?
Or if he knew he tried to stick weight stipulations on Stephen Fulton or Marlon Tapales? What would these same people have said?
You say, well, Gervonta Davis is the A-side to Devin, yeah, and he knew he was the A-side to them, but he didn't need weight stipulations to knock those guys out, so why should Gervonta need him for Devin? Isn't he supposed to be a tank?
Fucking hype job is what he is.
You guys are terrified. You'd rather see him fight Ryo or Isaac again, anybody but Devin.
You don't want him to fight Shakur neither.
It's getting more and more obvious why. In men's light heavyweight news, Eddie Hearn says, every time I think about this fight, I can see Callum Smith knocking Artur Beterbiev out cold. The fight between them is right around the corner. Feels like it's been a long time coming because it was postponed as a result of a botched root canal from Artur Beterbiev.
They had to delay it. Eddie Hearn.
He expects Callum Smith to finish the job Callum Johnson failed to complete in October of 2018 when he battles Artur Beterbiev on January 13th in Quebec City, Canada. Hearn explained his take on the Beterbiev versus Smith showdown during an interview that was posted on Monday, the Matchroom Boxing's YouTube channel. Yeah, you know, you can just see it, you know, Hearn said. I mean, I remember when Callum Johnson fought Artur Beterbiev years ago. It was actually our first ever Matchroom Boxing USA show on DAZN, and he dropped Beterbiev with a left hook. I can just, every time I think about that fight, you know, as Callum does, just catch, counter, I can see him knocking out Artur Beterbiev out cold in Quebec, and he's probably partial. You know, he likely is because, well, he promotes Callum Smith. So what do you expect him to say?
Does Callum Smith stand a chance?
Artur's not invincible. In my humble opinion, Artur's not invincible, and no fighter is. But when you think about Callum Johnson knocking Artur Beterbiev down, and you think about Jeff Page knocking Artur Beterbiev down, you also have to factor in what happened after the knockdown. What happened after that?
You bring up a moment where Artur Beterbiev looked human, then you also have to apply that formula to Callum, because in a lot of people's opinions, Callum lost to John Ryder.
It's a tough ask, because I really believe Callum is going to do it, Hearn said. And you know, people give him a good shot in the fight, and I do. I really believe Callum Smith will beat Beterbiev and become the unified light heavyweight world champion, two-division world champion as well. Can't wait to be there. And you know, it's one of those fights where you go and you get the victory over there, and it's just one that you really remember. If by some chance Callum Smith pulls this off, he will be integrated into the Ring IQ pound-for-pound list for two reasons. One, it's because Artur's ranked on the list in the bottom tier, and per the rules that govern the list, in defeating a pound-for-pound fighter, you become one yourself. But just as well, this would be the second world champion Callum has taken a title from. The first was George Groves in the World Boxing Super Series when he took the WBA title from him. If he takes these titles from Artur,
that's an even bigger victory, a bigger win that would make Callum a two-division champion.
It's a credible argument. Eddie Hearn continued, and age, you know. He had to pull out of the first fight with Smith, you know, saw him against Anthony Yarde, obviously a very good fighter, but just started to show a few signs, you know. I think he can be hurt, but a big danger, and Callum's got to get it in spot on. But I believe he will do it. And while Anthony Yarde did put up a good fight against Artur Beterbiev, got some quality shots off, Anthony is actually a lot better mid-range to inside than Callum is because he's not as long and limber.
Ahead of that fight, I told you right here on this channel, Anthony's got the right style for the job and the right sweet spot. He's got some of the right ingredients, but what he ain't got is the right level of experience. I felt Anthony was going to put up a good fight, and he did.
With Callum, it's a little different because he's got those long arms. He's so long and limber that mid-range to inside, it may be difficult for him to get those punches out, to get those punches off, as he's going to need more space to throw them. More space than Anthony Yarde needed, and more space than Artur will need. Mid-range to inside, Artur is lethal. And if John Ryder and Canelo Alvarez could elicit so much respect from Callum Smith,
Mid-range.
it's conceivable that a bigger man than they are and a bigger puncher than they are will elicit even more respect. Eddie Hearn continued, his 2 fights, Callum Smith's 2 fights at light heavyweight, obviously against opposition not to the level of Beterbiev, but he iced them, Hearn said, and he can really punch, you know. He was at 168 for a long time, struggling to make the weight, so this is a big shootout in Quebec.
What Eddie Hearn is doing is tantamount to wishful thinking. He's connecting the dots. He tells himself, well, if Callum Johnson could land hard, then Callum Smith can land hard.
And because he landed hard on Lennon Castillo with a big right hand, and he landed hard on Matthew Bauderleek with a big left hook, a catch and counter left hook, he tells himself he can land those punches on Artur, with the difference being Matthew Bauderleek and Lennon Castillo, they don't have the firepower that Artur Beterbiev has. And firepower, a lot of it can elicit a lot of respect.
You feel the wind of those punches as they sail by, or the weight of those punches as you catch them on the arms and gloves. That might make you not want to throw, not want to open up, and before you know it, this guy's drowning you.
What happened to Callum when he fought a naturally smaller man in Canelo Alvarez? Canelo, quite deliberately, was landing punches on Callum's arms in order to disable them, in order to neutralize them, and it actually worked.
Rocky Marciano used to do that.
Damaged the guy's arms by deliberately going there, deliberately throwing punches at the guy's arms so he can hurt him, and so the guy can't throw his punches as good. That's what Canelo did to Callum. Now, if Canelo's power hurts you, what do you think Artur's power is going to do?
Power is the last thing to go.
A lot is made of Artur Beterbiev's age, that he is getting older, he is getting long in the tooth, but power in and of itself is the last thing to go, and he's still got it. He's still got enough of it that he can hurt Callum.
Another misconception about Artur is that he's just a brawler, just a banger. He's just a guy with power. No, he's more than that. This guy can box.
Comes from a great amateur background, and I think people tend to forget that because of his highlight reel knockouts. That what really stands out about Artur is his devastating power, but people don't take stock of what happens leading up to the knockout, his shot selection, his movement, his jab. He's definitely a pressure guy, but he's a little more than just a pressure guy.
Anything can happen.
But I still like Artur's chances more than Callum's. Moreover, I'm a little bit more interested in seeing Artur fight Dimitri than seeing Callum fight Dimitri, because for years now, we've been waiting for those two in particular, to fight each other. What makes that fight intriguing is while Dimitri Bivol has youth, speed, mobility, and agility, Artur has that great equalizer. Artur, he's got that power to where he ain't got to get in but a few shots to change where you are.
Or you feel.
Makes the fight more intriguing. I'm confident that we get undisputed in either scenario, whether Callum wins or Artur wins, but I am a little bit more interested in seeing Artur fight Dimitri than Callum fighting Dimitri. It's just more intriguing, and that fight has been built up longer than a fight with Callum, so we'll see what happens in a little over a week's time.